I should have known better than to sit through another one of my wife's family dinners. But she insisted, said it was just a night of food, wine, and laughter. Instead, it was humiliation served hot. Right after dessert, she flung her wine glass aside and smacked me right across the face. Everyone froze. Her mother burst into laughter like it was some comedy show. "She's a wild one," she said, sipping her drink like nothing happened. My own hands trembled on the table. I looked around, and no one moved to defend me. Not one. And then, like a ghost from the past, my elderly sister walked through the door. She hadn't been invited. She hadn't been seen in years. But the moment she appeared, the mood in the room shifted like a cold wind sweeping in. Everyone suddenly remembered. They knew what was coming. Before we continue, we'd like to thank you for your continuous support to this channel. Kindly subscribe, like, and turn on notification to this channel so you don't miss our next story. Our shout out go to Howard Thomas from Hope Mills, North Carolina. Tell us your name and where you're watching from in the comment section. We'll love to give you a shout out. Let's continue. When Esther walked into that room, she didn't just carry her frail frame and walking stick. She carried the weight of secrets buried for decades. The kind of secrets people whisper about behind curtains, but never say aloud. She wore a long gray coat with a faded brooch that once belonged to our mother, the same mother who mysteriously died in a house fire when I was barely in college. Esther blamed them all. My wife, her family, the crooked lawyer they once hired to block our inheritance. And me? I'd been the coward, the silent one, the obedient husband. But not anymore. My wife's smirk twitched the moment she saw Esther. Her mother stiffened like someone had just tossed a bucket of ice water in her lap. Esther walked slowly, deliberately, like every step was an accusation. She didn't glance at anyone else, just me. She stopped behind my chair and placed a thick brown envelope in front of me. Her voice was steady. "To my brother. You've been blind long enough." I looked around as murmurs rippled across the table. My wife tried to interrupt, but Esther raised a bony finger and silenced her. "No, you don't speak now. You'll listen." With shaking fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside were copies of bank statements, years of quiet withdrawals from accounts I didn't even know existed. Then there were emails between my wife and her mother, planning not just how to access my investments, but how to discredit me in case I ever found out. And worse, there were documents connecting them to the very fire that had taken our parents. The insurance policies, the sudden property transfer. I could barely breathe. My chest tightened with every page I turned, each one painting a picture more terrifying than the last. Esther leaned in and whispered, "You're not crazy. You were groomed, controlled. They chose you because you were loyal and kind." That moment cracked something open in me. I looked around the table, at the faces that once felt like home, and saw only masks. My wife, eyes darting. Her mother, now silent. The other guests, too stunned to speak. No one made a sound. It was as if the room had fallen into another reality, one where truth wasn't just whispered. It was shouted by the very person they thought they'd erased from our lives. Esther had come not to attend dinner. She had come to burn the house down. I stood up slowly, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted every eye in that room to feel the shift happening inside me. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was calm, dangerous, like still water just before a storm breaks. I pushed the brown envelope aside and pulled out a smaller one from my coat pocket. It was neatly sealed and labeled with a gold stamp, my personal insignia, the one only my sister and I ever used. "You see," I said clearly, pausing to make sure they all heard. I already knew. My wife blinked like she'd been slapped herself. Her mother's wine glass trembled in her hand. I took a deep breath, looked at them both, then continued. "That's why, 2 weeks ago, I transferred every asset I own into a trust you can't touch. Every house, every account, every dollar, including the one you thought you were laundering behind my back." That statement made her mother choke on her drink. My wife opened her mouth to deny it, but I raised my hand, silencing her just like Esther had done earlier. You said I was too soft, that I was your puppet. But you forgot one thing. I'm a silent planner. The room went pin-drop silent again, but this time it was charged. People leaned forward. Some exchanged stunned glances. I looked directly at the eldest cousin on my wife's side, the one who always rolled his eyes whenever I tried to talk business at family gatherings. You knew, I said quietly. You helped draft those fraudulent real estate documents. And guess what? I recorded you. I also recorded your phone call when you joked about me being too dumb to figure out you were helping my wife siphon off funds through shell companies in Dubai. He turned pale, real pale, like he'd seen a ghost that was coming for his name on a subpoena. That's when I stepped aside and clicked the remote. The curtains behind me parted, revealing a projector screen. The footage rolled, grainy black and white clips from the last 6 months. My wife with her mother at the bank, authorizing joint withdrawals. My cousin laughing on the phone, giving account numbers to someone overseas. A video clip of my wife and her mother sitting across from the crooked lawyer, who, by the way, was now under federal investigation thanks to Esther's tip-off. Each clip came with audio. Each audio came with timestamps. My guest gasped. One woman covered her mouth. Another whispered, "Oh my God," but it didn't stop there. The final video clip played with clear audio, my wife's voice saying, "If we play this right, we can have him labeled mentally unstable and get him institutionalized. His sister's already a recluse. If he breaks down in public, the court will hand us everything." That was it. The nail. The room shifted from whispers to outrage. My wife lunged forward, trying to unplug the projector. "Enough," she screamed. But it was far too late. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had heard her say it. I walked over to her calmly, placed my hand on her shoulder, and said, "Do you know what that was, darling? That was your last performance." By the following morning, everything was in motion. My lawyer, Esther's old friend from law school, filed multiple suits. Fraud, conspiracy, financial manipulation, the inheritance theft. And with the new evidence about the house fire years ago, the district attorney reopened the wrongful death investigation. My wife's mother was arrested within 48 hours. The cousin tried to flee but was caught at the airport. And my wife? She was served her papers in the very living room where she had once celebrated her birthday using money from my parents' life insurance. The one I never even saw a cent of until Esther showed me the real will. I didn't return to that house again. I moved in with Esther temporarily, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not revenge, not rage, just peace. One evening, we sat together on a bench outside the property that once belonged to our parents. The one we were told had burned to the ground due to faulty wiring. It had since been sold, renovated, and rebuilt. Esther leaned on her cane, looked out at the skyline, and said, "You finally saw it, didn't you? The game they were playing. And this time, you beat them at it." I nodded, the weight in my chest finally lifting. "Not just beat them, Esther. I ended them." She smiled. "Then let this be your beginning." And it was. I was no longer the man who stayed silent. No longer the puppet. I was the one who stood in the fire, came out with the truth, and watched the whole house collapse behind me, brick by corrupt brick. If this story left you stunned, tap like, hit that subscribe button, and turn on your notifications. You won't believe the next story coming. Because sometimes, the quiet ones make the loudest echoes. See you soon in the next story.